All right, everyone, welcome to Google I/O Extended, Mpape. So, I will not be the one to do the intro. I would invite hello our WTM lead to do the intro for us while we kickstart the show. I want to confirm. Hello, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hi, Adichie. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Blessing Eloho. I'm the Women Technical Ambassador for Google Developers Group PAPI of Google Developers Group PAPI. I welcome you all to today's Google I/O, um, hosted by GDG PAPI. Just in case you're wondering what GDG is, or this is your first time attending a GDG event, Google Developers Group is a community of those who are interested in learning and creating solutions using Google technologies. If you're interested in being part of this community, you can join any of the nearest Google Developers Group in your community. I'll be sending in the link where you can get all the world. Okay, so this is Google I/O 2021, and Google I/O connects developers from around the world through discussions, hands-on learning with Google experts. Um, yeah, hands-on learning. So, and a first look of Google's latest developer product. The magic of Google I/O doesn't end after the main event. So we have amazing speakers lined up with several topics, and I will call on my co-host, Mr. Ayodeji, to introduce our speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, welcome to Google I/O Extended. And as you said, we promised to have a lineup of speakers, very interesting speakers. Okay, starting from GDE person here, Santosh Yadav. My first event, I was opportune to attend. That it was a special guest, was actually awesome, and I think that was the event he shared his journey into when he started and also when he became a GD. So that was a very interesting journey, and I was really inspired. Okay, so we have he'll be talking to us on getting productive with Angular, and I'm really excited to hear that. I'm really excited for the talk, and also I have Abdul Kudus. Abdul Kudus is I call him JavaScript guru. Um, is anything JavaScript, is all personified JavaScript as a front end developer at Outsource Global. Then Zaliad, we have Zaliad also, a seasoned data scientist. I actually met Zaliad back in school, and she's a first class computer science graduate, and she'll be talking to us on how we can deploy machine learning model using Kubeflow. So I welcome you all to this event. And okay, just a little bit of modalities about the event. How it will go. Our first speaker is coming up after. Will be coming up after the keynote. We're gonna play keynotes for about 10 minutes. Then our speaker will be coming up. I also want to mention that Santos is joining us from India, and from his time zone is actually around, if I'm not mistaken, 11:30, 11 o'clock, or 11 p.m. or so, or 12 p.m., where and he's supposed to be sleeping, but he just had to be with us today. I'm really 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 happy you're able to join us, Santosh, and I'm happy you're able to at least sacrifice for us and sacrifice your sleep and be here with us. So, so after the first speaker, we have the second speaker, which is Abdul Kudus. Then the third speaker is Aliat. So we won't waste time because this is a virtual event. A lot of people are joined, have joined with the data and everything. So we like to keep it as short as possible. So, but after all that, we have a networking session. This networking session, we're going to create a Google Meet link that will post and share on the YouTube comment because we are streaming live on YouTube. So we're going to post a Google Meet link on our YouTube um, comment section. So anybody that is interested in meeting developers here, networking, and also the giveaways will happen during the networking session. So, without wasting much time, I like to play the keynote speech, so it's not going to be long. We're just going to play the Welcome Developers keynote speech. And since we're not talking about Android today, I would like to play the keynotes, the what's new in Android talk. So after the keynote is the Android talk. So it's just about 10 minutes before Santosh comes up. So without wasting much time, let me just share my screen. When you see my screen, kindly confirm. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be back here at UIO again this year. I work on developer relations here. As Sundar said, we all miss being able to get together in person. While it's a different vantage point than we're used to, I'm glad we get together virtually. We have over 225,000 registered attendees joining us from 181 countries today, with some of our largest audiences from India, the US, Brazil, Germany, and South Korea. Many of these communities are going through extremely difficult times at the moment. So wherever you are, we hope you and those you care about are staying safe. This year has been unlike anything I imagined we'd be living through. It's changed so much, including how we live, work, and interact with others. We've had to adapt to working together while physically apart and tackling problems we never imagined we'd have to face, all while dealing with tremendous isolation and loss. But technology has played a significant role in helping us adapt to these challenges, allowing us to do everything from ordering groceries to working from home to staying connected with our loved ones. As we know, crisis doesn't create character, it reveals it. And it's been amazing to see developers like you coming up with solutions to the problems around you. It's in our developer DNA. We're problem solvers, drawn to the hardest problems and using technology to tackle them. I've seen this again and again during the past year. In Kenya, there's the team at Flare, who used Google Maps to create an emergency response app designed specifically for places without emergency phone service, like 911 or 112, which has helped save over 7,000 people from previously impossible situations. In Russia, there's Ivan Bakaibov, a 21-year-old self-taught programmer with cerebral palsy who develops apps for other people with speech and motor challenges to communicate. All of his apps are free and open source and helping people around the world. In Texas, there's Mandy Price and her team at Canaries, who are using machine learning and natural language processing through AutoML to help companies with their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. While most companies can measure the representation of their employees, the team at Canaries is using hundreds of data sources to quantify equity and inclusion, uncover structural bias, and drive systemic change. And in Bangladesh, we have the team at Maya, who created a digital assistant so women could get health information and telehealth consultations in their native language. The team partnered with Google to use an end-to-end transformer-based deep neural network to train on their in-house data set, which increased the accuracy of their natural language processing to above 90%. Now their app can provide answers in Bengali to questions on 50 topics. And in the last year, their platform has reached over 10 million users. These are just some of the stories we've heard about developers around the globe who've built and achieved amazing things during incredibly difficult times. You've also found ways to continue to collaborate during this time. Around the world, our Google Developer Group leaders have stepped up in a huge way, figuring out how to host events that worked for each of their communities. We had over 16,000 digital events last year, reaching over 3 million developers, which is nearly double the number of developers we reached the year before. That's amazing. And while it's not the same as working together in person, it's helped to support each other when we've all needed it. And we want to continue this support by meeting you where you are to help you solve the problems you care about and build the products of our future. And that isn't easy. We know it's hard to build in today's environment, and not just because of the pandemic. It's challenging to code for multiple platforms. It can be hard to integrate machine learning, and it's complex to manage user data safely and correctly in markets around the world. But across our products, we're working to make it easier so that you can focus on the specific problem you're working to solve. Today, you'll hear the latest on Android, the web, Flutter, Firebase, and machine learning. So thank you for joining us. And now I'd like to pass it on to Jacob, who will start us off with updates from the Android team.
I want to connect with people and then just get this conversation that we started here and make it happen all year long.
Thank you, Jason. This really has been a year of huge changes for all of us. I remember watching what felt like futuristic video calls in the film 2001 as a kid. Now, my 3-year-old chats with her grandparents every week on Duo. We can't wait to see each other, but it helps us get through a difficult time. With people depending on apps more than ever, expectations are higher, and your jobs as developers aren't getting easier. We want to help. Today, we'll talk about 3 things: Android 12 for developers, building beautiful, high-quality apps with modern Android, and how to bring apps to large screens and wearables. Okay, let's talk about Android 12. As Samir shared earlier, Android 12 is one of the biggest design changes ever, with new experiences that keep people safe, and an all-new UI that is personal, smoother, and much faster. To help bring this to your apps, we're adding a ton of new features. Let's start with user safety. As developers, you know it's crucial that people trust your apps and the platform they're on. To earn this trust, we believe people should understand how apps use their data, have control over how their data is used, and are comfortable it's necessary for tasks that they've initiated. In Android 12, we're adding multiple features to help people understand how apps use their data. To check usage in your apps or SDKs, we're giving you auditing APIs and guidance. And to share more context about your usage, you get a new API, permission intent. To give people more control, we're adding features like approximate location so they can decide how much they want to share. And to help people feel comfortable with the data you're using, we're giving you Bluetooth permissions to scan and connect to nearby devices. No more location needed. Now, we also want to help you build delightful apps. To us, this means that they perform really well and are engaging. Most of this is magic that you add as developers, but the platform should help. First, performance. Sometimes apps are killed or notifications are delayed to improve responsiveness and battery. We know this is frustrating, especially when it's unpredictable. To help, 2 areas we focused on are standby buckets and foreground services. For example, the new restricted standby bucket lets Android limit background work in ways that you'll find predictable and transparent. Foreground services help people interact with apps that are doing work in the background, such as recording your morning run. But sometimes they're misused. Now, you can only start foreground services from user actions or external events. And for background work that needs to run immediately, we're giving you expedited jobs. To improve app startup, we're adding guardrails that prevent apps from using notification trampolines. Working with Google Photos, it now launches up to 34% faster. And we have new customizable launch animations and splash screens. Startup feels responsive, and you can update it with your branding. That was performance. Let's talk about making your apps engaging. We're improving the experience across Android with things like updated notifications and bubbles. Your apps get this for free, but there's more. We're improving media with a new API to insert content in apps like messaging, and we're adding support for AVIF images and HEVC transcoding. And to give people a fun way to see when they've scrolled past the end of your content, we're giving you stretch over scroll. And to make widgets more interactive, you're getting features like animations and new UI controls. Now, that's just a quick glimpse into Android 12. Watch the What's New in Android session for more, and then download the beta, test it with your apps, and tell us what you think. Now, over to Karen to see how to build beautiful, high-quality apps with modern Android.
Okay, so that's about what we can take for the keynote. Okay, so I had to use Android, just Android, because there are a lot of talks when it comes to inside the developers keynote. There are a lot of talks, and we won't be able to watch that. So I only chose for Android because today's topic is not covering Android, and we would like to um, do as much as possible to touch areas we're not able to touch. Okay, so without wasting time, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Santosh. Santosh is a GDE Google Developers expert for Angular, and he's joining us all the way from India. He's going to give us a talk on getting productive with Angular. So, Mr. Santosh, you're welcome.
Hey, yeah, hi. You can hear me properly?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah. Thanks. So thanks a lot for the invite. So as informed, I'll be talking about getting productive with Angular because that's what I love to do. Let me just talk about myself. So I'm Santosh Yadav. I'm GD for Angular, and I'm one of the GitHub stars from India, and as well as an Auth0 ambassador. I am a writer for indep.dev. This is learning, and this is Angular, the publication which we have available on dev.to. Apart from that, I also run my YouTube channel called Tech Talks with Santosh, which recently, just yesterday, we completed a year. Apart from, and you can also find me on different social media with this handle called Santosh Yadav Dev. You will be able to find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as GitHub. So feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn if you want to connect later on. So let me share my screen. Sorry, can you just add my screen? Yeah, sorry. So I just really forgot to actually share the screen. So yeah, as you can see, I'm JD for Angular, so I'll be talking about how you can get productive with Angular. And let's go ahead and get started. So first thing first, I mean, if you see Angular is actually built keeping productivity in mind. What I mean by that, so that's what I'm going to talk about in this entire talk. But let me just tell you first thing, right? So whenever you start a new application, what is most important for your organization? It can be anything, but of course, productivity is one of the major concerns. So in case you think productivity is what you are looking at, I think Angular is the best choice in case of large enterprises. So whenever we talk about Angular, we think about this logo. But is it Angular just this logo? No. Let me just show you this clear picture. So in reality, Angular is this. So you can see it. Angular comes with a lot of different libraries, tools, which you can actually go ahead and use in your application and become more productive. So let me just go ahead and just start tell you what are those things, right? So Angular has built-in model for forms. So in case you are using Angular, you don't have to actually go ahead and search for which form library to use. It has built-in routing, so you don't have to go ahead and search for different routing solutions. It has pre-configured unit testing, so you don't have to worry about which testing framework to use. Of course, you have different options. There are different unit testing frameworks which you can actually easily integrate with Angular. So I'll just talk about a little bit about it. And you can also build tools. I mean, that's what frameworks offers, right? Frameworks are something which you can use, but you can also build on top of it. And one bright area about Angular is you can also build tools if you want to. For example, your own CLI. It what in case you want to build an PWA? Yes, Angular does support that, so you can create a PWA as well. SSR and pre-rendering, of course, whenever someone wants to actually show their website on Google on top SEO related things, SSR and pre-rendering becomes really important, and we'll also talk a little bit about it, how you can add the SSR to your application easily. Localization and internationalization. So Angular does support that. It has built-in solution for this. And what in case you want to use any UI framework, right? So actually Angular comes with Angular Material, and it also has built-in support for dependency injection, which is one of the, I think, the strong point about Angular. So let me, and many more, right? So let's go ahead and see how you can get started with Angular. So whenever you want to create a POC, right? So your manager comes in and says, okay, look, we want to create a POC and we want to deploy it on some server, and it should be ready within 2 days. So what you will do? Okay, of course, I think you need to add my screen. It's not visible. Yeah, it's visible now. So what you can do? So with Angular CLI, you can actually do this thing in three different or three or four commands. So I'll just talk you about this. So first is, of course, you have to go ahead and install Angular CLI. So that's the first line, npm install Angular CLI -g. It's actually, we are installing the CLI globally. And then you can create a new app just by doing ng new and give an app name, and a new app will be created for you. After that, of course, you need to you need to test your changes locally. What you can do? You can do just ng-serve, and your changes will be reflected locally, and you can just make changes, save it, and of course, all the changes will be reflected in real time. And what after that? So you need to create production build. So what you can do? Still using Angular CLI, you can just run this command called ng build -fn prod, and it will create a production build for you. Now the last step is remaining, which is actually to deploy this application on production. So what you will do, as it's POC, I mean, you can of course go ahead and deploy it on any server. I mean, even a free server will work, right? So that's where you can actually go ahead and utilize the existing ng deploy command, which is available in Angular CLI. And there are integrations with few of the servers or cloud providers already. Azure, AWS, Firebase, Netlify, GitHub Pages, all this already has integration with ng-deploy. So what you can do is you can add any provider using ng-add command, and then you can do ng-deploy, and your application will be deployed. So remember, from starting the application to deploying the application, everything is possible using CLI. What next? So let's see. Whenever we start learning about any UI framework, right? So every UI framework has different syntax, and you have to actually go ahead and learn the different syntax each framework offers. For example, React has in React you use JSX syntax, right? And Vue.js you have Vue.vue file where you write your syntax. What about Angular? Angular is just HTML. So it's not like you are going to write a new syntax or you have to learn about new template engine. It's not. It's just an HTML which comes with just a little bit added sugar on top of HTML. So we will talk about those things. The first thing is, in case why you create UI, you want to render some information on your page. That's what you do. So you can, of course, write the HTML normal, I mean, the vanilla HTML which we write, right? So you can just write the normal HTML, and then you can just use some syntax which is provided by Angular. First is string interpolation. So in case you want to actually display any variables value on your HTML, what you can do, double curly brackets, and just provide your variable name, and that's it. What in case you want to actually bind some value to an existing HTML tag? For example, here I have taken an example of in a text. How you can do that? Of course, in older ways, right? So this is how you will do it. For example, so let me just go to console. Generally, what you will do is you will say, okay, document.get element by ID, and then you will get the ID of div, right? So you will get whatever ID your div has. sorry, right? And then you will say dot inner text. This is what you are going to do. But this thing, let me just increase the font size. So this thing actually you can do without actually writing any single line of JavaScript or TypeScript code in Angular. In Angular, what you can do is you can just use the properties which is actually available on HTML. So any valid property, remember this thing is really important in case you want to get started with Angular. So any valid property. So here inner text is a valid property and I can just bind any variable which is available in my TS file. Similarly, in case I want to raise an event, how you do that? So here it is, like you have, whenever you go to JavaScript, you have events like on click, on double click, on move, on mouse over, on mouse out. All those are the events, right, which is generally available. What you can do using Angular is just remove on, put the banana brackets, we call this as banana brackets here, and then equals to whatever function you want to call. Generally in pure JavaScript, what you will do is you will say on click equals to function. That's it. I mean, that's the only difference which you have apart from the normal HTML which you have to write. So this is about the template part. So you can quickly actually get comfortable writing new template engine for Angular because it's just HTML. Now let's talk about dependency injection. Dependency injection is one of the, I think, most powerful feature which makes Angular really what it is, because it is something which is not available in any other frameworks. Apart from server-side programming, if you go to C# or if you go to Java, of course, dependency injection is something which is really important in those languages and they are used widely. But in Angular, in other programming languages, for example, C# or Java, you have to go ahead and configure dependency injection to use it. What about Angular? In Angular, it is built in. So how you generally use dependency injection? So if I talk about the terms of C# or Java, the dependency injection is one of the design pattern, of course. But what you achieve using dependency injection is, rather than creating a new instance of any class, what you do is generally you give it to the framework and let framework decide which instance to be created. So that's what dependency injection is. So in Angular, what you can do is you have concept of something known as services. You can actually go ahead and inject any service by using constructor injection, and then you can use it in your application. Other advantage, you can also create a wrapper over on the top of the built-in browser APIs. For example, if you want to use Navigator, or you want to use browser, or you want to use local storage, how you generally do that in other programming languages or other frameworks. So you just directly go ahead and use local storage or Navigator. But in Angular, what you can do is you can create uh, something known as injection token, and then you can use it as a service. The advantage is, of course, you can actually mock it when you want to test it, because those things are not testable, right? Most of the time, browser APIs, you cannot actually test it on your unit testing frameworks. Of course, in integration tests, it's possible, but while doing unit tests, it's not possible. That's where really this feature really shines. You can actually mock it and then do whatever you want to. So this is something related to dependency injection. Forms. If you go to any other frameworks, you have to, of course, go ahead and figure out, okay, which form to use. Either should I go ahead and use this form library or that form library. Angular already offers you two ways to create forms. So there are two ways called template-driven forms, and another one is reactive forms. So it's not which one is better, it's what you need, right? So you can choose any one of them. The only difference is, in template-driven forms, you will be writing your entire entire form. You will be creating entire form in your HTML template. And in reactive form, you have more control programmatically. So you will go to your TypeScript file and you will create your forms, and then you will just render it on HTML. That's the only difference. And otherwise, all the APIs are same. So internal APIs remain same. You have to decide which your team is comfortable with, and then you can just use it. So that's about forms. And this is an example how you can create a form. This is a reactive form example where we are using some form. You can see this is a normal form, right? And apart from that, we have just used some syntax which is provided by Angular. So we are using form group here, form control names here. So this is how you will create a reactive form. So let's move ahead and routing. Of course, whenever your application grows, you want your user to have the functionality where you can navigate within your application. So what you will do, you will of course create routes. That's what you do in any other framework, right? You either go to React or go to Vue, you create routes. So in Angular, this is how you can actually set up routing. So this syntax is, of course, in case you are coming from a React background, this might look familiar because, of course, this syntax is almost similar in any other framework which you choose, let it be React or Vue. So you have path to decide what friendly name will be there in your browser when you click on this particular thing. So on home, I want to actually go ahead and access home component. On event, I want to go ahead and open event component. This is the default one in case someone new comes to my application where he or she or they will be redirected. So they will be redirected to home in case they just come to my application. And in HTML, you have to just add this. So in HTML, you can just add links and then add a router outlet, and that's it. This is how you configure your routing. And of course, once your application becomes difficult, this settings will change. But just to get started with, right, you can quickly create a navigation. But in case you have a large application, right, you created an application which is really huge, which contains a lot of code, and now what? That's where lazy loading helps. I mean, of course, you are not supposed to serve like 5 MB of application to your end user, right? I mean, of course, it will take a lot of time depending on where the user is, what the internet speed is. So what you can do is you can actually split your code base in multiple modules, multiple chunks. That's where lazy loading comes into the picture. All frameworks does support it because, of course, they will be using some build tools behind the scenes. For example, uh, Webpack, right? So Webpack allows you to actually configure lazy loading or create lazy chunks. So this is how you can actually create lazy loading or configure lazy loading. So you can create a path and then you can use a syntax called load children and then use this import statement. It's a native import which is available in browser as well. So you can just use native import and then give the path to your module and then just select whatever module you have. That's it. And then what your Angular compiler will do is it will create another chunk or another JS file for this code which actually is contained within this module. So all this code will be loaded on demand. I mean, there are multiple ways to actually configure how you want to load it, but we'll not go into that detail right now. We just want to focus on how you can get productive, right? So this is how you can actually do that. What about API calls? Of course, that's the most important part, right? I mean, whenever you choose a new framework, you have to learn about how to integrate with an API, how to call an API and get the data. In Angular, they have something known as HTTP client service, which you can use, and then you can just call any methods, right? For example, if you know APIs, how they have get, post, put, delete, all those methods, right? So you can actually go ahead and do that using HTTP client service, which you have to inject dependency injection. Remember the previous slide where we talked about, and then you can inject this particular service, and all these methods are available. You can just go ahead and call any API which you want to. The only thing which you have to do is you have to go ahead and add HTTP client module to your application. That's it. And then you are free to make API calls. What about a web component? So let's say your manager comes in and says, okay, we have to do one thing. We have a team which is actually using plain HTML, right, on vanilla JavaScript, or they're using Vue.js or any other framework. And then the manager says, whatever framework or whatever components which we have created, we have to actually give it to them so they can also use it. And you will be like, okay, now what we can do. So Angular comes with a solution where you can actually convert your own components as a web component, which can be used across any framework. So to convert it to web components, so these are the things which you have to do. So first thing is you have to go ahead and add um, package. So you have to say ng add Angular elements and then your project name. And once you do that, it gives you an API. So this is the API which is known as create custom element. And then using create custom element, you can convert your existing component. For example, in this code snippet, you can see we are converting pop-up component as a pop-up element, which will be an HTML tag which can be used in any framework, even in HTML page, normal HTML page without any JavaScript. You can also go ahead and use it there. So this is how you can actually convert your components to web components. Easy, right? I mean, that's a simple API. PWS, I mean, a lot of you might be aware of PWS because it's been supported by most of the framework, or it's been promoted a lot. So what in case your manager comes and says, okay, look, I heard about this term called PWA, and we want to convert our application to PWA so our users can install on their mobile or on their desktop. So you are like, okay, now I have to learn about PWA. In Angular, there is a single command which is known as ng-add at the rate Angular PWA, and then it does all the configuration for you. You don't have to write any code. It just gives you does all the configuration for you, and then only thing which you have to do is adjust some settings. That's it. That's up to you. Localize your app. In this era, actually, the language is not a restriction, right? I mean, a company which is like in India or in Africa can do business anywhere across the world. But one thing which they have to make sure is, of course, the website which they have is readable in each and every continent or each and every language, and that's where localization comes into picture. And from last few years, if you see, a lot of companies are putting a lot of money to make sure that their application is available in multiple languages. Localization has been a really huge success from last few years, and that's where Angular has a built-in solution for that. So you can actually go ahead and say ng-add Angular localize. It will just do all the configuration for you, and it supports 3 formats right now. So it supports Xclif 1.2, Xclif 2, and XML message bundle. These are the 3 formats which are supported right now, and these are some industry standards as well. So what it does is it gives you, once you actually run this command ng exit i18, and it will give you some files where you can actually just copy paste those files with different languages and then just give it to your translator, and they will add whatever language or equivalent terms are, right? So they can create, for example, one file for uh, English, one for German, one for France, and just like that. So they can create multiple files, and then you can add multiple language support to your application. That's possible. Unit testing. So of course, there are a lot of unit testing solutions available out there. Angular comes with inbuilt uh, unit testing solution. So what are the advantages? Of course, you have zero configure effort, right? You don't have to do it by your own. And it comes with Karma and Jasmine. In case you want to move to anything else, I'll just let you know at the end what you can use. And then you can just run ng test and run your test cases. Of course, you have to write it. That's just remember that. Now your let's say your CEO comes another day and says, hey, look, we our application should be on top of Google, so we need to do SEO, and we also need to do SSR, because we can decrease the load time, because I learned about it somewhere on the internet. They said SSR is something which is cool in case you want to make your application faster, and now you are like, okay, now I have to learn SSR. That's really bad, right? No, in Angular, you can actually do ng-add Angular universal at the rate ng universal / express engine. It will add all the configuration required to actually configure server-side rendering for your application. It uses Node.js. Remember that. So you need somewhere on your server, you need to have Node.js available to run your application for future. And then once you do that, what happens? So it will be configured. SSR will be configured with Express server, as I said. It provides you dev server as well. So it provides you dev server where you get live reload functionality with SSR. So because of course you need to actually test it on your local, right? So that's what you can do. It also provides pre-rendering functionality. I'm not sure how many of you are available of pre-rendering, but pre-rendering is something which is provided by a lot of other frameworks. For example, Next.js. I'm sure you all know Next.js. So you can actually pre-build your pages, and then they will be like static pages which will be served on the internet. So that's also possible using Angular. I'm not talking about adding anything else. I'm just talking about Angular. Once you add ng universal to your application, you can also pre-render your pages. So in case you have some static pages, you can actually pre-build it. So it won't be requested. I mean, it won't be compiled again, and then it will create the page and then serve it. No, it will be a static page which will be available. So for example, you have 404 pages or some pages which are static. You can actually just pre-render them. Now, what about code sharing, right? So you have a large application, and now your manager comes and says, look, of course, we created this application, but now we are going to get few more clients where they have almost same requirement, but maybe some configuration changes. So what we have to do is we have to make our code more scalable. So now you think, okay, what needs to be done? So what you can do is you can actually go ahead and create Angular libraries from day one to split your features into different libraries. And then whenever a new client comes, you can just go ahead and use those libraries and create a new application. What it allows you to do. So you can create and publish Angular libraries on NPM. So it is available for everyone. It also provides ng packager configuration. You don't have to do anything. In Angular 6 and above, sorry, Angular 6 and below, it was manual. So you had to do all this configuration, not relevant right now. You can share the code between multiple apps or libraries. That's also possible. And this is how you do it. So you can create a new library using ngGenerate. You build the library using ngbuild, and then you can just move to the distributable folder which will be created, and then you can just run npm publish command, and that's it. Your package is available on npm. In case you want to learn more about how to create and publish libraries, you can actually go to my YouTube channel, which is Tech Talks with Santosh, and we have two videos available. So this is yeah. So there is this two videos, which is building and publishing Angular libraries, which will actually guide you step by step how you can create libraries and then publish it on NPM. So you can actually refer to those videos. Let's talk about Angular compiler. Of course, we are talking about productivity here, right? So Angular compiler is really amazing because you can debug your template, you can debug and test your component, you can get compile time errors. This is the most amazing feature if I have to tell you about Angular, because you don't have to actually go ahead and build your application, deploy it, and then see error. It's not like that. Most of the errors are something which you will be able to see it in your editor. So here you can see what I did is I just wrote and code, and then I wanted to use inner text property. Remember the template part where I said any valid property can be used to bind the data. Now here what I did is I made a mistake. I said t small, and you can see Angular actually gives me the error when I do ngserve. When I'm running my code on my local machine, it gives me error that this is something wrong and this property does not exist. This is amazing, and this is how you can actually test your components in case you want to on your local machine. So you can just do ngserve, select any component which you want to. For example, here I'm selecting an component called dnt to dos. Yeah. So DNT to-do list. So you can see I went to console. I said $0, which gives me access to the component or whichever element I want to access. And then I said list component equals to ng dot. There are many APIs which are available, which can help you test those applications inside your browser. You don't have to do anything else, and you can just apply or change the values, see how it looks like. So here I'm changing the array of records. Here you can see I'm just making it blank, and then I'm calling apply changes, and that's it. You will see all the values from the array will be removed. I'm just doing it in browser because of ng API, which is available during development mode. And there are a few more APIs which I will not talk about because I'm going to show you something extra or something amazing which was actually announced at Google I/O. And next thing is Angular language service. If you are Angular developer, I'm sure you know about Angular language service. But in case you are not using Angular language service, please go ahead and do that, because it gives you all the errors, all the warnings inside your editor. It gives you hints as well while you're writing your code. It gives you autocomplete. Everything is possible because of Angular language service. So here you can see I'm able to see this properties does not exist. This function does not exist because of Angular language service. So I don't have to actually even run my code. I can just see it in the editor while writing my code, and I can see, okay, this. So here you can see I just uncommented this department list. Now I'll be able to see it inside my HTML. This is something which is possible using Angular language service. So use that. We also talked about UI framework, right? So of course, Angular offers you Angular Material and Angular CDK. So Angular Material is of something which has built-in controls. CDK is something which you can extend and make your own controls. So it is managed by Angular team. It is not another team which is responsible for it. You can create your own components using CDK, and it is optimized and well tested for production use. So you don't have to worry about any exceptions. So this is how you can actually add Angular material to your application. You can just say ng add Angular material, right? So now what about bring or build your own tools? So let's say you are using some tools which is already available in JavaScript ecosystem, and you thought let's add it to the Angular. And because I think this is something which might be useful in the Angular ecosystem as well. So that's possible as well. So there are two ways. There is something known as schematics, by using which you can automate the creation and modification of file. Why it is important? Because let's say your team decides to use some other formats provided by Angular. So you said, okay, I will not need these files when I create a new application. So what you can do is you can actually write your own schematics and you can actually modify those files based on your requirement. It can also automate setup for your library. So you decided that my library, of course, will contain all these files apart from what Angular does. So you can create your own schematics. Builders. So there is another library called builders, which you can actually use to override the build processes provided by Angular. So you said, let's say for ng test, right? I don't want to use Karma or Jasmine. Maybe I don't want to use Jest as well. I want to use some third party library which is new, and I want to actually try it out inside the Angular. So of course you can actually do that using builders. You can bring your own tool inside the Angular CLI. That's how ng deploy was born. And as I said, I mentioned something previously. If you want to like be super productive, just go ahead and do this. So you to your application, to your existing Angular application, just do ng add narwhal workspace and migrate to NX. And once you migrate to NX, I think it will give you more powers, more advantages. So if you are not aware of NX, NX is a uh, monorepo solution for JavaScript. It's not only for Angular. You can actually go ahead and use it for React, to any other framework, and it supports a lot of other frameworks, including Nest.js and many more. And the recent thing which is coming from IO 21. So Google has now its own DevTools. So here you can see an example of DevTools. You can actually go to Chrome Web Store and you can install it. And once it is available, you will be able to see an Angular tab inside your DevTools. And this is how it looks like. So you can see I'm able to access all the components which are available here. I can change the properties. And then of course the same will be reflected here. Here also, let's say I change new header to from dev tools. So for testing purpose, I can just go ahead and change the values here and see how it looks like, right? So I don't have to go ahead and do anything else. For example, products, I just want to make it blank. So what I can do is I can just say Mhm. Okay, so let's product list new, right? So I can just go ahead and change all the values from here, from DevTools, and see how your application behaves. Remember the ng API I spoke about little in few slides ago. You don't need that anymore. You can because do the same using this DevTools, Angular DevTools, which is available, and it also gives you profiler. So in case you want to see how your components uh, how they perform. You can actually do it from profiler. So you can just start the profiler, click on multiple buttons, and then see these are the bar these are the data which you will get. So you can click on any one of them and you will see, okay, this ng4 is taking 7.1 millisecond, which is like very nominal. And then app component is something which is running for 1.4 millisecond. And what is getting changed, right? So you can also see, okay, so it app component actually the lifecycle hook, there are multiple lifecycle hook in Angular. So it says, okay, there are some changes which happen to your app component and the change direction lane for that. So these are the different components which got impacted when you did some operation on your page. So all these things are available in DevTools now, and it was recently available. I think it has already has a lot of downloads. You can see more than 60,000 developers are already using it. So in case you have any Angular application and you want to actually go ahead and see how it performs and figure out the issues, you can actually go ahead and use this profiler, or just for testing purpose, use this components tab to change the values, see how it behaves on your application. And there are few tools which are created by the community. So there is something called ngx.tools, by using which you can figure out all the schematics and builders. Remember I spoke about. So there are already some schematics and builders which are available. You can go to ngx.tools and find it out. Similarly, there is something. Okay, got stuck somehow. This page was hand, so I'm almost done. So mhm. Really sorry. So I'll just give you some references to, and then we'll just talk. So that's it. That's yeah. So in case you want to read more about Angular, you can go to angular.io. You have some blog post on dev.to. There is something called This is Angular, and then there is an Angular publication as well. In dev.dev is something which has more in-depth resources. Once you are comfortable with basics and you want to dig in more details, in-depth.dev is something which you can read. And that's it for the day. And in case you have any questions, it's already around 10:30 p.m. in India, so I cannot hang. I mean, I won't be available here or live, but you can actually go ahead and send me the message on LinkedIn or Twitter, whatever way you feel comfortable with, and I would love to answer you. Probably I won't be available for a few weeks on Twitter, so I mean, once I'm live, I'll respond to your questions. So that's it for the day, and thanks a lot for coming to the talk. I think you're on mute. I cannot hear you.
Okay, can
Still
you hear
on
me
mute?
now?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, so thank you for the talk. As a JavaScript enthusiast, I just started JavaScript because I've been running from JavaScript for a long time. I've been working with Python. Okay, so that's a good one. So I'm sure all the Angular enthusiasts or the JavaScript enthusiasts would actually get a lot from that. So since we're streaming live to YouTube, or everything we have here will still be available anytime. You can come back to refer to it and get all the talk. All the If you're feeling very lost at this point, then you can still come back, learn more JavaScript, and come back to this level where Santosh shared about. Thank you very much, Santosh, and thank you for joining us this late, even if it's so late in India and you're able to join
No,
us. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
thanks a lot for the invite. See you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so let's move on to the next speaker. Okay, so he's also a JavaScript expert, but he's not here today to talk about JavaScript. So I'm introducing our next speaker. The name of Abdul Kudus. Okay, and he's here to share with us today. So I don't know, Abdul Kudus, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for joining us. You may have the floor now without wasting time. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to share my screen. Please let me know when you can see my screen. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So hello everyone. My name is Abdul Kudus. I'm a front-end developer at Asos Global. So today we'll be looking at how we can measure web vitals using Lighthouse, right? So it's very much easy to walk up to someone and tell them, hey, look, my website is fast, it loads fast, right? But then becomes difficult when you're asked, okay, show me the numbers. How do you know your website is fast, right? Can you show me a chart? Can you show me metrics to let me know that your website is indeed fast, right? So that's where the whole problem comes in. So that brings us to Web Vitals, right? So what is Web Vitals? Um, so Web Vitals is an initiative by Google that allows you to quantify the experience of your applications, and gives you insight into what you need to improve in your applications. Now, Google came up with some core metrics that you can measure that allows you to, have numbers that you can use to say, okay, my website is faster than it used to be before. So these core Web Vitals are what we'll be looking at in the next slide. So we have three main core Web Vitals, but Google is looking to see how they can increase these core Web Vitals. But for now, we have just these three. We have the largest contentful paint, the first input delay and the cumulative layout shift. Um, so the largest contentful paint. So what this basically means is how long does it take for the first largest element to display on the page. So take for example, you go to a website. So how long does it take for maybe the largest image that you can see on that viewport without having to scroll? How long does it take for that element to show? So typical example, if you go to google.com, I would assume the largest thing you can see on that page is the Google logo, right? So how long does it take for that Google logo to come up? Now, typically it should take around 2.5 seconds for a very fast page, but this also depends on the location where your users are accessing your web applications from. If they are in remote areas that don't support 4G or 5G, I mean 2.5 seconds might not exactly apply to them, and you might have to consider another time. But ideally, you should expect your application to load up within 2.5 seconds under ideal conditions with fast network and all of that. So the next one is first input delay. Now, this is also very important. So largest contentful paint lets you know how fast your application load and what the user sees. The first input delay deals with interactivity. How fast can a user interact with your web application? So there are times when you try to visit a web application and you try to click on the button or a link and it just doesn't seem to work. You keep on clicking on it, but it doesn't work. Now, that's where first input delay comes into play, right? Typically, when your web application loads, it's expected that within 100 milliseconds, that's zero point 0.1 second, people should be able to interact with your application. That means I should click on a button and expect it to work. I should click on a link and expect it to take me to another page. So that's what first input delay is, and typically occurs when maybe when your page is loading, you have a background task that is blocking the whole website and it doesn't allow you to do things. Now, um, there's this image on the right that shows you uh, kind of like the time that your website needs to be active and allow user to interact with it. So 100 milliseconds, it is good. If you are within 300 milliseconds, it's also good, but can be improved, and anything above that is poor. Again, this doesn't apply to all regions. Location also matter, and the internet connection, also the device the user is trying to access web application with, matters a lot. um so the third one is the cumulative layout shift, short for CLS. So this is a very frustrating one. So imagine you are trying to access a web application and there's this button you want to click on, and just as you're about to click on the button, it changes position and you probably end up clicking something else, or you can't find the button anymore, right? So that's basically what cumulative layout shift is, and it occurs when maybe there is an element that you are loading asynchronously, or you're using JavaScript to add that particular element. So maybe you're fetching some data from an API. Initially, the data is not there, but when the data comes, it makes some things change position. So cumulative layout shift help you to address this problem. It helps you to measure how often it occurs for your users on the application. Now, there is a video that would play on the right. Yeah. So this person is about to, selected 56 items and is about to go back, but then just as the person was about to go back, and something came up and made the back button go down, and the person mistakenly clicked on submit order. Now, imagine if you have your card added to this application and then you mistakenly buy 56 items. Now that could be nice. I mean, but you ended up wasting a lot of money just because of a simple shift in the layout. Now that's how bad this can be. So usually a cumulative layout shift should be within a range of zero point 0.1. So cumulative layout shift basically is like the largest burst of layout shift. So a burst of layout shift is when you have multiple layout shifts occurring within 1 to 5 seconds. So if you have several elements that change position within 1 to 5 seconds, that's recorded as a burst of layout shift. So if you have several bursts of layout shifts, it's expected that you should have like a CLS score of zero point 0.1. Now, you don't really have to know how to calculate these things, there are several tools that you can use to measure all of this. You have Lighthouse, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So, how do you measure these core web vitals with Lighthouse? So what exactly is Lighthouse? Well, it's an open source tool. I think it was created by Google that allows you to basically measure a lot of metrics on your application. It's not just relating to the core metric vitals that we talked about earlier. It also helps you check your search engine optimization, check the accessibility of web application, progressive web apps, so many things really. And it's a very important tool that a lot of web developers should try to add to their arsenal. There are several ways you could use Lighthouse. You could use Lighthouse from the DevTools. Um, there's also a command line tool that you could use. There's also a node module, a node library that you can use to run Lighthouse checks on your application. So how do you use Lighthouse in Google Chrome? So I won't be talking so much as to how to use Lighthouse on the command line and as a node module, because that's a little bit technical. So we're just going to stick with how to use Lighthouse in Google Chrome. So if you have Chrome browser, you open the browser and you type in the URL of your website. So take for example, you have google.com, right? You enter google.com in the URL in the URL bar and you click enter. You visit the website, you open your DevTools. So if you are on Mac, you can use Command Shift I. If you're on Windows, Control Shift I should open up your DevTools. So you can head over to the Lighthouse or Audit tab, one of the two, depending on what version of Google Chrome you are using. Then you should see a button that allows you to generate the report, and that's basically it. So this is basically what you should see, but I'm going to show a quick demo into how you can generate these reports and what exactly they mean. So I have this skincare website that I found. It happens to be very small, but yeah, that's what we're going to use to test the performance using Lighthouse. So this is my DevTools right here. So I'm going to head over to the Lighthouse tab, and yeah, so you can see this generate report button. So we're going to click on this to generate the report for the entire application, and yeah, it shows you Lighthouse is warming up. So this might take a while for it to generate all the reports, the performance, the accessibility reports, search engine optimization, and pretty much everything about the application. So let's give it a little time for it to come up. Yeah. All right. Now, aside Lighthouse, there are several other ways you could measure the web vitals of your application. You might have to run this again. Um, all right. Yeah, aside Lighthouse, there are several other ways you can measure the metrics of web application. There's a library called Web Vitals that you can deploy when you're also deploying your application. So that allows you to measure your applications in real time. So kind of measuring web vitals in production. So when you deploy your application with the Web Vitals library, it allows you to gather metrics. So if you have users in Canada, users in Nigeria, users in several parts of the world, you can know where they are accessing your website from and what these vitals are like. How fast does your site load in these different locations? Um. Okay, I think we have an issue here. Hmm. Let's see. Let's hope this works this time around. So currently, yes, awesome. So this is what we have right now. So The website has a performance score of 70, accessibility 98, best practices 93, SEO of 92, but our main focus here is the performance. Now you can see some of the metrics that Lighthouse checks. You have the first contentful paint, time to interactive, speed index, total blocking time, largest contentful paint, cumulative layout shift. Now we talked about the core web vitals, right, which are the first contentful paint, largest contentful paint, total blocking time, relative layout shift. So total blocking time in this case, I know we talked about first input delay, but Lighthouse uses total blocking time, which is similar to first input delay. So we have the largest contentful paint of 2.1 seconds. Yeah, it's not exactly good. I mean, green stands for perfect, yellow stands for can be improved, right? And red stands for it's poor and needs to be improved. So the largest contentful paint is 2.1 seconds, can be improved, but it's still manageable. Total blocking time of 0 milliseconds, which is nice. Cumulative layout shift of 0. So there were no, sudden shifts in the layout on the page. So, users will experience any difficulties navigating the site. Now, one good thing about Lighthouse is it provides you with ways you can um, fix some of these issues in your performance. So it says here eliminate render blocking resources. You can click on it and it shows you some of the things you need to modify. So here it's telling you there is a Google font that is taking time and need to be processed. That's why the site doesn't load as fast. And there's also an analytics script here that is running in the background that's making the site slower. There are also other things that you can check. So it tells you avoid long main thread tasks and all of that. So you could decide to go a little bit more advanced into the audit to see the performance profile. So this is a little bit more advanced, but this allows you to check to see the stages at which your application is when it's loading. So you can this is our application when it start loading, you can keep moving it and you see the first thing that loads. So it's a little bit more advanced and you really might not need to do all of that. The Lighthouse audit is usually enough for you to um, know the metrics of your application. So that's basically it for Lighthouse. So with this audit now and with the hints that it gives you as to how to improve the metrics, right? You can pick this audit and probably provide it to someone. Okay, hey, look, my site loads in about 2.1 seconds. That's how long it takes for it to show the largest content on your website, or it has a 0 millisecond total blocking time. So these are metrics that you can use on your application and things that you can actually quantify, right? So that's basically it about Lighthouse, and that's how easy it is to run Lighthouse tests on your application. So measuring web vitals is actually very important for businesses that need these numbers, right? They can use these tools like Lighthouse, as we discussed earlier, to measure these vitals and send them out to people that need these numbers. Another thing is it provides an overall good user experience, right? So imagine people come onto your application and it loads in less than 2 seconds, right? That's very fast. And the thing is, there are a lot of several other websites that could provide such services to them. So take for example, you try to visit Amazon.com to buy something and it takes about 1 whole minute to load. Now, you might think, okay, that's not so bad, but the thing is, there are other competitors to Amazon. So if Amazon takes 1 minute to load, the user is more likely to, leave Amazon and try to look for an alternative. So, measuring these web vitals and making sure your website has a very good score is really important when you are building web applications. So, that's for me. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, you feel free to drop them in the chat section on YouTube. I will try to get to them as soon as I can. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Abdul. Thank you very much for that wonderful session. Um, I believe we all learned a new stuff today about web, checking web vitals and how to measure it. And I myself, I'm a lover of good website, and when I say good, I mean a site that would actually load at the right time, and the site that would actually, load whatever you want to load, any content you want to load at the right time. So that's more like a good quality of a website, whereby its response time is so fast. You can get it up, you can go back, you can all those. This measurement actually would help you as a developer to create the best website. And I know you as a person, I know why you chose this topic, because you're a lover of you're an evangelist of preaching web accessibility. So I'm not surprised you picked this topic. So thank you for joining us, Abdul. And if anybody has any question, we'll drop it in the chat box. I believe you're still here, so you can always answer questions that comes due to your talk. So always
Yeah,
check
yeah,
out
sure.
YouTube and also here, then would get you on back on to answer that throughout the show. Okay, so don't forget we have a networking section just after after our last speaker, which is Eliat. So kindly stay around. That's when we'll be giving out our giveaway, and also networking. That's major reason for the session. So here on YouTube, we can't interact that much, but on the during the networking session, everybody will introduce themselves. Would get to interact, we get to meet each other, we get to know about each other. So that's the essence of the networking session, and of course the giveaway, which is also a key part. Okay, thank you, Abdul. Would move on while we look out for questions. We'll move on to our next speaker. So I'll be bringing up our next speaker in the name of Zaliat. So Zaliat will be talking to us on building machine learning models with Kubeflow. I hope I got that. So welcome, Zaliat. Can you confirm if you can hear me?
Yes, I can. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Very, very well, loud and clear. So thank you,
Okay.
Zaliat, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Okay, just let me know when you can see my screen. Okay. So my name is Mohammed Zedat Arazi. I'm the lead data scientist at Harmonia Labs. And today I'll be talking about deploying machine learning models with Kubeflow. Today we are going to talk about Kubeflow, machine learning life cycles, Kubeflow components, and of course the Kubeflow pipeline. So I've heard a lot of people ask, I want to learn machine learning. I want to build models. Probably, maybe they want to build a recommendation system. They want to be able to. They want to be able to have a system that like Netflix that can recommend probably movies or music or books. And the major issue is taking that model into production. That's maybe integrating it to a mobile app or a web app. So Kubeflow is a project. Kubeflow project is dedicated to making deployment of machine learning workflows on Kubernetes simple, portable, and scalable. And if you've used Kubernetes or you've heard about Kubernetes, one of their selling point is that it's scalable, and the portability is very portable because you can use it in different platforms. So Kubeflow is built on top of Kubernetes, and as we all know, Kubernetes is a product from Google. So most times when we talk about Kubeflow, and the first thing that comes to people's mind is that it's only used by machine learning engineers. That's people that are trying to operationalize the model, but that's not entirely true, because data scientists too use it to build and experiment with machine learning pipelines. So, and also, yeah, the machine learning engineers can also use it to deploy their machine learning systems in various platform. That's they are leveraging on the Kubernetes APIs to, you know, run it on different platforms. So traditionally, when you think about machine learning, or when people think about machine learning, the first thing they think about is how to get the data, because data is like the foundation, right? So this is how the life cycle goes. You have data injection, that's trying to get the data from probably a scraping a website, or you're getting data from a database, or wherever you're getting data from. Then try to get insights, try to understand data. This is the stage where they call the EDA, that's the exploratory data analysis. You try to get insights on what data is about. Then you do feature engineering. So feature engineering, and before this, there are some data that require, like, some preprocessing. Maybe you're trying to convert a string to a number, or maybe you're trying to convert maybe an image to arrays, something like that. So you do this preprocessing. So once you are done with that, you move it to feature engineering. And there are some times where you don't need this feature engineering, because when you're working with images, there's this algorithm called CNN that does automatic feature engineering. So this depends on the type of problem you're trying to solve. So you move on to the model development, model training, and then model evaluation or model scoring. So this is typical way of building a machine learning model. But most people think that building the model is that the most important aspect of creating a machine learning solution. But what they don't know is, like, the most important aspect, or the most time consuming aspect of machine learning is the serving. So as you can see from here, the larger the box, the size of the box, like, gives a sense of how long it takes to, like, build the create to complete that phase. So if you can see, data collection it's even larger than the machine learning code. So we're going to see how how this is done using Kubeflow. Okay, so traditionally, this is what we do. Like I said earlier, you have your data collection, choose your machine learning algorithm, and develop your model. Then you have to iterate, because as you're getting new data, you have to, like, train your model with that data, and then try to, like, improve on the performance of the model. Then you have to, like, experiment with different model too. So you start with maybe a simple model before you move to complex models. So with Kubeflow, okay, so this is where data scientists actually work, right? This is where data scientists actually work. So what they do is they try to identify the problem and collect data for the analysis. Then you choose a machine learning algorithm and develop your model. So all this can be done with Kubeflow. Kubeflow comes with components such as PyTorch, sklearn, TensorFlow, so you can actually choose from a wide variety of models. Then you experiment with data and train the model. So one of the, like, my favorite components of Kubeflow is the Katib. So what Katib does is it kind of does automatic model hyperparameter tuning. So instead of you to, like, change different parameters, when you're trying to like get the best model, then you change parameters, maybe the batch size, the number of epochs. When you're done with that, you have to, like, save the results, then check again. So this will, like, slow the process down. So what this does is automatically generates random values for this hyperparameter, then save the result. Then you can then pick the best model. So in the production phase, so sorry. So in the traditional way, we have your data from the past phase, that's the preprocessing stage. You have your transform data, then you now train your model. Then some people save the model as a static file somewhere, maybe in maybe a bucket on Google Cloud, then you do batch prediction. Then you have to then like do this manual training again and tuning of the model. Then you have to check, okay, is this model performing well by maybe you have some metrics that are using to measure the performance of the model. Then if the model is performing poorly, you have to go through the whole process of data transformation, training, and then serving again, which is time consuming and not very, very efficient. So with Kubeflow, what you do is you have your transform data, then you can train your model with, so one of my favorites here is TensorFlow job. So it's like automates the whole, training thing, and it's very, very fast. And it's distributed such that instead of using like, the way Kubernetes work, that you have like you have your application in different ports. So it's does distributed training, which is fast, and you can have like, you can run multiple epochs. You can even like have two jobs trained at the same time. So you serve your model using KF7 or TensorFlow 7 or Seldon Core. So you have this to monitor the model, you can use either of these options, and then the iteration is done with Castive, which is like automated, like I said earlier. So you don't have to like you don't have to wait for maybe your data scientist to retrain before you can. So the way this one works is that you have like the thing there, you have two models. That's the new model that is coming and the old model. The old model will still be serving the users while the other model is trained. So there's no downtime. And it's very, very reusable, because if you have the same problem, right, you just need to plug in the data, a different data set, and then you can just run through the entire process without having to change anything. So this is done with Kubeflow pipelines. So the end of the goal of this pipeline is to, the first one is end-to-end orchestration, enabling enabling and simplifying the orchestration of machine learning pipelines. So like I said about Kubernetes, it allows you to like scale. So you have like your machine learning models in different pods, or the components in different pods, and then this thing just makes it efficient and easy to use. So then you have this easy experimentation. It allows you to like I said about Katib, it allows you to do automatic hyperparameter tuning without having to. So that means you can like try different times and get better results instead of trying doing all these things manually. Then you can easily like use these components, like I said, or you can just, if you have the same problem but with a different data set, you can just plug it in and then run the whole thing, and in less than 30 minutes you have like a model that is working. So the Kubeflow pipeline is made of components. So this is what the pipeline looks like. So there are two different type of ways that you can develop your pipeline. There's a lightweight component. This one is when you're trying to experiment, you want it to be fast. So you just convert. So let me explain what each of these things means. So your component is like a code that performs one of the phases in the life cycle. So for example, now you can see extract data. This extract data now is a component, right? So for the lightweight, you just have to convert your, maybe the function that you wrote to extract data into a Kubeflow component, and then you can just run it on your Jupyter notebook. But for the reusable one, you have to like create a Docker file. Then when you create a Docker file, then you can now compile the pipeline. So each of these steps is connected. So instead of having to like run this thing every time you are trying to do an experiment, you just have to recompile the pipeline, and then you have like a new model. So let's look at it. You have extract data. The extract data now will serve as the input to generate statistics. So if you can see here, you have this transform data, train, and then validate. So the most important one is this serve model, which is like the last component. So what this one does is when you finish building your model, there are two ways that you can serve it. So you can either maybe just deploy the model into maybe just embed it into a web application, or you expose an API to receive requests. So this, I've not really tried the first option, but I'm very familiar with the second one, that you can just expose the API using, maybe you're serving using KF7, then it exposes an API for you. So what you can just do is just send requests to that API. So from your front end, you don't have to build any back end or any API to serve to communicate with the model. You just have to use that endpoint, send your, maybe for example now, if you're trying to maybe your prediction is house prices, and then your features are like maybe the number of rooms, the location, and other features that you have. Maybe you just send as a JSON file. It depends on the format that your model is expecting. So you send it in that format, then all you have to just do is send the request, and then you get a response, and you can just display it in your front end without having to understand the whole back end stuff. So there are like methods that you can use. KF7 is like my favorite, but then we have Seldon Core, TensorFlow 7 too. So I just wanted to introduce us to Kubeflow to just get a sense, because it's a very broad topic, not something we can cover within the time that we have here. So at Hamoye we have like trainings, we do internships, and then we have this internship that we have that's starting August. So you can register. We do all this. We don't just teach you how to build models. We also teach you how to deploy the models and then use the models in production. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat box and I'll answer them. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay. If you have any questions for Zaliat, please you can ask questions now. You can drop them. Drop it in the chat box. I believe she'll get to attend to it as soon as possible. Okay. So thank you very much, Zaliat, for joining us. That was awesome. Talking about machine learning. That was my recent interest, and I have been enjoying it so far. I've worked with some models, and maybe because of my interest in Python, so I had to just dive into machine learning, and it's been a smooth ride. So thank you for that. I learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers also learned a lot from that. So thank you. So we'll be going straight to the. We said we're not going to waste time, so let's keep on our watch. We'll go straight to the networking session. So the networking session, I'll be sharing a link to the Google Meets. I'll be sharing it on the YouTube chat.
Okay, so Deji, sorry for cutting you short. I think
Okay.
there's a question on the chat box for me.
Okay. So let me. Okay, there's a question. Yes.
Okay. So the person is asking how he can apply for the internship. So I'll drop the link with Deji, then he can share it with you guys. The application ends on 30th, and after the internship, there's a job opportunity at the end. So yes, I'll drop the link. You get the details. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much. Okay. I think I think there's a follow up reply to that. I'm looking for. I don't know if you can attend to that also, Zaliat.
Okay, sorry, what was the question?
Said I'm looking for an internship for in data science and machine learning. So is it
Okay.
the same thing with the one you just talked about?
Yes, yes, yes. It's a data
Oh,
science internship.
okay. Thank you. I believe Joseph, you're clear on that. Okay, thank you, Zeliat, for that. We'll keep you on the standby in case of any more question. Get in trouble. But we're actually going to the networking session now. You can speak directly with the speaker. I don't know if they are willing to join us, Abdul and Zaliat, if you are willing to join us in the networking session. So I've pasted a link. So just send the link to the comment section so you can join us. So just click on that link to join our networking session. We should be starting about now. So okay, I have to let you guys in. So just a moment while I end this broadcast, and we'll go straight to the networking session. So just copy the link somewhere, and in the next minutes when because I have to be the one to let you in. So the next few minutes we would get straight get straight to that. So thank you everyone for joining us. Would gladly love to hear from you. So if you're on Twitter, you're on any social media platform, just share your experience with the hashtag Google IO extended happy, and you get to retweet, and also we love the engagement. So thank you for joining us today. It's gonna be on YouTube for till whenever you want. So if you can come back to watch the videos, to rewatch the videos, I'm sure some of you came late, so just come back to it at any time to watch, to just train yourself. So thank you. So that will be all from us here. Bye.